Hello YouTube, and welcome to the big mess test here. We are putting the Vax Mach Air Reach to the ultimate test. This is my biggest mess test so far in this room, and the floor is completely covered with mess. It's the contents of old vacuum cleaner bags, dust, cereal, all kinds of stuff, grit, cat litter, cat food, fine particles, couscous, everything, cat hair, clumps of fur, the whole workings is down here now. So essentially there is the landscape across my living room carpet. There is not going to be an easy way out for this cleaner. It is about to get a damn good grilling. Will that be able to cope with all this? And it's not just been thrown on the carpet, but I've ground all this into the carpet with my feet as well. So it's gone into the pile, because I am very dubious about the fact whether that deep cleans. It may get the surface litter off, but after that's finished I'm going to go over it with the Dyson again like I did yesterday on maximum suction, and we're going to see whether that Dyson, which is a 700 watt motor, can do better than the Vax, which I believe is a 1200 watt motor, because it's a pre-EU type. Right? So I'm going to set the camera up on this little table over here, and we're going to have a go. And I may have to stop to empty the machine halfway through, because once it gets full and it won't pick up anymore, that's not the machine's fault, that's my fault for overfilling it. So if it's full, I've got to empty it. I've never done a big mess test this big before, so this is where we are going to find out now, can the Vax cope? So let's go. And the brush roll will be on for this test. If it gets clogged, then I will have to try my best to unclog it, but it'll be a strike that goes down against it if it gets clogged, because other machines have managed to do something similar to this in the past. So here we go. Right, so after just doing that one stretch, bin is full already. I don't fill it normally so that it covers the shroud, okay? We fill it up to the max line, which is just here. Because if I overfill it and it clogs that shroud, that effectively is not giving the machine a fair chance. So once it gets to that line, we empty it each time. But I can already see that the shroud is beginning to get clogged here. Whether it gets clogged all the way around, we'll have to see. But I'm not going to be overfilling the machine. So I'm going to empty it now. I'm going to empty it just over here, and back into the container again. But I'm not going to be cleaning the filter because I want to see what the filter looks like at the end of doing this test. And already I'm having to stick my hand up in the cylinder to retrieve the dirt there. So there we go, that's the first emptying. Let's go again. Cotton wool ones, I don't want to be sucked up because they obviously block it. So it's full again, up to the max line here, second empty. And once again, you can't get the dirt out very easily, you've got to get your hands up there. That'll have to do. I'm sure it'll rise it off and turn it back on. I am really very, very surprised. I really honestly didn't expect that machine to do that. I really didn't. I thought that would get clogged because of the fairly small air passageways on it. I thought there's no way that that will be able to handle all those that amount of fluff and that sort of stuff in there. All those hard grit stones. But you look at that carpet there. I mean, I ground a lot of that in with my feet. The flour and all the fine dust and everything was ground into there. I am absolutely quite staggered, to be honest, that that has done that well. I really am, because, you know, that's absolutely fantastic. For a very, very, very tiny little brush roll like that, with very, very soft bristles on. And you can see the fine dust in there. There is very, very fine dust. It's not just all large particles. I mean, virtually, the shroud is virtually clogged. It was beginning to lose suction at the end. The shroud on the top. We will get the just get the filter out now and have a look. Now, I showed you the filter in the last review, that the filter inside here was clean. The question is, how clean is it now after cleaning all that up? Which is effectively 3 full bins. So, I mean, that one's not quite full. That would have gone a little bit more, but you can see the holes in the cyclone shroud there are pretty much all clogged. So it's a miracle really how that had any suction left at the end. But it still did it. It still did it. How is the filter? Well, I tell you what, that is quite incredible. That was there before, that brown dust, from previous tests I did. I can't remember what it was I was picking up with it, but that was quite fine dust. But, you know, I haven't cleaned this for quite some time inside there. And you can see that. That filter, when you think about the one yesterday on the single cyclonic, which clogs pretty much the same as this does, right? I mean, that's pretty clogged in there. But look at the filter. There's nothing on it. That's incredible. You know, how can Vax produce a machine like this, and yet such a terrible machine as I reviewed yesterday? You know, the Energised Pulse PET was dreadful, and yet this, obviously it was designed by somebody else. So, you know, you can see there what a vast difference there is in Vax machines. They can produce some cracking machines. This was one of them. If it was put together properly and those hoses didn't come apart, that's done a fantastic job with that big mess test. I am very, very pleased with that. It did very well. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put the Dyson over here and we'll see just if anything was left deep in the pile. So, once again, as I did yesterday, the bin on this is empty and I've cleaned it. Okay, so the shroud's clean and the bin is clean in the bottom. There's nothing in here at all. I will drop it. Okay, so there's nothing in there whatsoever. So any fine dust that it picks up will be apparent in here after the event. It might not drop on the carpet, but it will probably be lining the inside of the shroud here, so we'll be able to see if it picks up any fine dust. So let's go, let's get this out. And exactly the same way as I did yesterday, I'll put the camera down on this table again. And we will in fact, no, I might just put it on the top here because that seems to be a better... Yeah, that's better, isn't it? So let's get it out then. How well do you reckon it did? How well do you reckon that Vax did deep down in this carpet? Because yesterday this was cleaned by this machine here, by this Dyson, and it was a clean carpet. I've put the big mess test down, I've cleaned it with the Vax. How much do you think this is going to pull out of this carpet now? On max mode, which I'm going to put it on. I know it's harder for me to push it around with max mode, but you need it really to get deep down. So, plugged in. How much time have we got? 14 minutes remaining on this video. So, the big test. A really popular machine with the Vax Mach Air. Is it gonna leave a stack inside the pile of this carpet, or isn't it? Let's find out now. My goodness, that is such a hard thing to do, to push that across there on maximum suction. It is much harder to push this on maximum suction than it is on the normal suction. It really does pull every single ounce of power it's got through the base there, and you can just feel it clamping down. So it's worth the effort, I think, to be a bit more difficult to push if it's going to get a really deep down clean, and you can feel it. You can just feel it as you're pushing it along. I could feel the flexing in this handle as well. So I will admit that it still does. There is still an amount of flexing in this handle. It's usually apparent more on the max mode when it's really, really more difficult to push. But the question is, what has it got out? So looking in the bottom of there, what we can see that wasn't there before, I mean, this dirt won't come out when I tip the trapdoor, because what that is, it's very, very fine dust, right? Now that was a clean bin. I made sure that I cleaned the plastic on the bin, so although there doesn't look very much in there, there is a fair amount of fine dust. That's fine dust in there that missed, and I think the reason for that is because the shroud was getting clogged. But nevertheless, I mean, there you can see it, there's not a lot in there other than very, very, very fine powdery dust. And I would suspect, you know, there's more up here actually, because that was clean as well. So some of it's actually accumulated at the top of the bin around that seal for some reason. And I noticed that before, that it seems to accumulate a bit up the top of there. So yeah, it has removed some dirt, fine dirt though. So let's just open the trapdoor. So obviously there, yeah, there we can see it, accumulated around the bottom. Yeah. So it's not a lot. There's a little tiny bit there of probably what's carpet fibres, and very, 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 very fine dust. That's the really thin stuff. That's about the smallest particles of dust this is. This is like flour. So once again, the Dyson has pulled some out of the carpet, but the Vax didn't leave a lot, did it? It really didn't. So despite its flaws, which with this machine weren't actually, I wouldn't say they were design problems, the ones that I listed, where the hose ends were coming off because they weren't glued on properly. That's a quality control issue. The lack of grease on the pivots there that I highlighted, that was a quality control issue again, rather than a design issue. And this here, where the inner cyclone lifted up inside and opened up that gap at the bottom and caused the dirt to go up the cyclone in reverse and clog the top filter, again, that was a quality control issue, because they obviously hadn't given it a bit thick enough seal at the top to stop that centre part rising up inside, which is why I had to stick the sellotape round. But the sellotape has actually fixed the problem, as you could see when I took the filter off, and the filter was absolutely clean despite all this. So I think that this machine deserves a bit of an accolade, really. Even though it's a Vax, you've got to give it to it. I mean, when I did the original rating on this, I think I gave this machine about a 9 out of 10. I was very impressed with it. Out of all the Vaxes that I've had, the Ma-R, the original version, is one of the best they've ever made, in my opinion. I showed you the worst one yesterday, and this one here is about the best. Because with that tiny little brush roll and those soft bristles, that has got so much dirt out of that carpet that the Dyson was only able to retrieve that small amount there of fine dust. Everything else was picked up in here. I'll invite people's comments below, and we'll end it there. Bye for now.